Hi, I'm Mark Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge, and welcome to 3 therapy techniques that help your clients transcend their labels. A person is so much more than their diagnosis. Now, a client came along and he said, "Hi, I'm Kennedy. I'm an alcoholic." Those were the first words that he said to me. But Kennedy hadn't drunk a drop of alcohol since high school. And he was now 33, and he'd come to see me not about drinking, but for help with relaxing whilst flying. Okay, he was a frightened flyer and he wanted to fly with confidence. Now, I asked him about his alcoholic status, and he said, "Well, I'm really a recovering alcoholic." And like many people, Kennedy had been led to believe that an alcoholic is never recovered, but can only ever be recovering. So Kennedy had himself fundamentally labelled himself as an alcoholic, or someone who is recovering from alcoholism, rather than someone who has conquered it, even though he hadn't drunk and had no desire to drink for many decades. And we can understand that it may seem safer to adopt this mindset as a kind of protection against tipping back into alcohol abuse once more. You can see why people do this. But framing your whole identity around some diagnosis can also be really damaging. Language, as you know, can shape our expectations, and our expectations can powerfully shape and prime our experiences. And if we practitioners ourselves aren't careful, we can make it worse for our clients. So where is the real you in all of this? It's a question to ask ourselves and our clients. Okay, you've got this diagnosis, but where's the you in this? You weren't born into the world with a limiting diagnosis, And the language of identity is tricky. When someone has a cold and gets over it, are they cured of that cold? Okay, or are they in remission? When someone has cancer and gets over it, are they said to be in remission? Okay, or are they cured? So, this remission implies that it's a state of being that's only a temporary cure, and that it's waiting to come back, perhaps. People who experience depression may be described as depressives. Okay, they and the people around them develop a whole set of expectations around who they fundamentally are. And we know that expectations can drive experience. In one piece of research, check out reference 1 in the written version of this, a group of cancer survivors who considered themselves cured did better than a group who thought themselves to be in remission. So language does have powerful effects sometimes. The cured group were happier, stronger, experienced less pain, and functioned better socially. They saw themselves as cured, as opposed to those who saw themselves in remission. So there's a big difference there. So it seems that how a patient sees their disease, or even whether they consider it a disease at all, as with alcoholism and depression, can have big implications for how they experience their diagnosis. Whether someone considers depression or alcoholism a disease, which is part of who they are, an attitude strongly encouraged by the pharmaceutical industry, or something that is not integral to their core identity and therefore can be mastered and left behind, can make a whole lot of difference. Anyone can contract cancer and fare badly with it, no matter what their attitude. I'm not saying that it's all to do with attitude. Of course, anybody can get sick. However, there is evidence to show that those who don't see cancer as who they are fare better than those who come to identify themselves exclusively as a cancer patient. Check out reference 2 in the written version of this in my article. So what therapy techniques might we gently use to help clients feel they can be more than their condition? Okay, whatever that might be. So here's 3 therapy techniques that I found really useful in helping clients transcend their limiting labels. So tip number 1, frame the condition as a behaviour or temporary current state. So you are depressed, you have depression, therefore you are a depressive. Okay, it's a very limited way of thinking about things. The thinking then goes something like this, well, if I'm a depressive, then even when I'm not feeling depressed, I still sort of am really. The depression is just biding its time to come back and reclaim its position as head of the household leader of my life and sole occupier of my soul. Be mindful of language when discussing your client's condition. So, okay, as an example with Kennedy, he might say something like, I am an alcoholic. And this is his whole identity. This is a sort of statement that encompasses who he is fundamentally. And I might say, so you used to drink and it was a problem back then. So I've framed it as a past thing, something he did, not the whole of him, and something which is separate from his core identity. The aim is not to minimize the client's experience, but to gently lead them to a place where they feel stronger than their condition. Which leads us to tip number 2. Refer to it, not you. So how does the anorexia convince you that you're too fat? Okay. How does the depression make you view the future? Okay, so there's a divide between you and it. How does smoking con you into taking it back again when you'd finished with it? Not you the smoker, but it the smoking. It's much easier to separate yourself from something when you see it as outside of who you fundamentally are than a core part of yourself. And many smokers do see themselves as smokers, and that's a central part of their identity. And we have to deal with that when treating smoking. Tip 3, look at life beyond the label. Someone who has constructed, with the help of others, their identity around being a smoker or a depressive or codependent or bipolar can come to feel as if there's nothing else to them. And of course, when treating someone to help them overcome or live better with some problem or difficulty, you do need to ask and talk about it. And so do they. You can't pretend it's not there. But I think we also need to take great care to avoid deepening their sense of this is who I am. So I talked to a man who'd smoked 40 cigarettes a day for 30 years, starting when he was 12 years old. And he now looked about 112. About his life when he was still 11. Okay, talked about his life beyond and before the smoking. And he imagined it, and even half recalled what it was like to get up in the morning with all kinds of other stuff on his mind other than cigarettes. And we got him to relive those times before smoking ever darkened his doorway. From this, we were able to go on to speak about a future without cigarettes. It had 12 years of not smoking, so he knew how to be a non-smoker. So we simply got a sense of that being in his future again. So it's not fundamentally who he was. You might talk to someone who's been depressed about what they do normally. Okay, or what does the real you do? What do you do normally? What do you like to do normally when the depression isn't here? When they're feeling fine or okay? Or what would they do once the depression has gone away? Okay, so it's them. They are separate from the depression. The depression doesn't define them. Kennedy too was and is so much more than someone who used to have a problem with drink. Why should that define him? He's done all kinds of incredible things. Labels can be very useful, but they can also shape how we feel and squeeze and limit our expectations. Labels stick, but they can also be unpeeled. If someone's been led to believe they're stupid, they will perform lower on IQ tests because of that belief. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to know when my next video is published, hit the notification bell below this video. I'm Mark Tyrrell of Uncommon Knowledge, and if you'd like to subscribe to my email newsletter, you can find it over at unk.com/blog. That's unk.com/blog, and thanks for watching.